Welcome to the modernization of the workforce. Our facilitator is Ellen Rame. She is an HR executive, attorney, and has master's degrees in organizational design and behavioral sciences. Now, as a principal consultant, she uses behavioral science to inform and improve human capital. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you.
So let's go into theme number 8, risks and pitfalls. Explain this.
So this is theme number 8 of a panel that has been looking at what types of activities and changes there will be in the future and how those will affect the workplace. And so over the last 7 themes, we've heard a lot about the advent of AI and robots and the gig economy. So this theme was asking the panelists, with all the things that they've been talking about in the last 7 themes, what do they think the risks are going to be to companies in the future? And what, if anything, do they think can be done about it?
You led a great and diverse panel. Tell us about them.
Yeah, we've got some new folks on the panel. I want to welcome them. So Nayara is new, Pradeep is new, Megan Campbell-Smith is new, and they're joining a bunch of people who've been very active and very engaged for many, many weeks now.
Looking forward to see what you guys learned. In your executive summary, you talk about the successes or failures of the future are going to be based on the same criteria as success or failure today.
So they talked about 4 things that were the biggest risks. The first one being poor change management. So specifically not preparing the employees emotionally for the change or providing them with the right tools and knowledge to operate in any new model that was coming. The second risk was about an understanding that there will be gig workers in the future and some flexible working arrangements for some people. But the risk is not combining those people and integrating them with the regular full-time employees. It leaves everyone with unclear direction. The third big risk was no proactive hiring plan and onboarding plan is going to make companies left with employees who are not engaged, have huge amounts of turnover, or really are not nimble or ready to do the jobs in the environment as they change. And finally, the last point that worries people is failure of companies to invest in the talent they have now so that they're ready to take on whatever challenges come up.
This sounds wonderful. Let's get into key point number 1, which talks a lot about change management and these 2 great points from Bart.
Basically, what he said was, if you don't prepare your employees, then they are going to be emotionally afraid about what's going to happen to them. If they're managers, they're going to worry about their power base. Will their team change? Will the size of their budget change? Who will they report to? And all of those things create a churn and a swirl that can really derail a company. And it's all not necessary if these things are proactively planned for.
And as you get into key point number 2, this just reiterates the gig economy is real, and it is part of the conversation still, right?
That's right. And again, the interesting facet of this that this panel brought up was not that they're worried that gig workers are going to replace existing employees, but they're worried that the gig workers, as they interact with the existing employees, are not going to understand the direction or know what's going on. And there's just going to be a lot of confusion, which again could be avoided if this was planned for correctly.
And key point number 3, acquisition plan, or at least an acquisition management plan, is critical, right?
So that's a fancy way of saying understanding who you're going to hire, what skills they need, when you got to hire them, and are you bringing them on board and bringing them up to speed quickly enough? Armando found a survey done by McKinsey, which lays out 3 things that are important in this area. First, you have to find people quickly and bring them on board. Second, you have to have a positive employee experience. And third, you have to understand what's coming in the future and make sure that HR is helping those employees move into the skill sets that they need to be future contributors. What Patrick is basically saying is a take that's similar to Armando's in a slightly different way. He's saying you can't just bring on a bunch of people and expect that those people plus AI is going to give you a perfect workplace, that you actually have to be able to use whatever you're learning from AI in the hiring arena and apply it to real people. And that is going to have you invest in the skill building of your HR and your employees.
Great. Now, your final point here, Ellen, key point number 4, continuous learning and training. This is something that the panel felt was really important.
So to explain this in slightly more detail, employees in the future are going to need to be able to morph and change and nimbly move and flex as whatever challenges come up happen. You know, in some of the other panels, we've talked about the fact that there are jobs that will be here 5 years from now that we can't even conceive right now. And the only way to make sure that that group of employees that you are employing right this minute are ready for those things is to invest in their skills. And if you look at Shannon's point, Shannon's actually done this and compared the ROI of an employee to the depreciation of a capital asset. And so she's sort of saying, if you had a machine and it had a 5-year shelf life, compare that employee to this sort of machine example, and you invested the same amount of money of that depreciation in the employee, then you wouldn't have a depreciating asset. You would have an asset or a human asset that kept growing and being ready for whatever you brought along.
So this survey, there's a lot of information on this slide. Walk us through it, Ellen.
This particular theme had a lot of back and forth. Everyone was really engaged in speaking about what they thought were the risks and pitfalls. And so in order to come up with the 4 key points, I created a poll for the panelists, and I listed all of the topics that had been discussed and asked them to vote on what they thought were the 4 most important. So the ones with the highest scores here correspond to what the 4 key points that we just talked about are. But what I think is really interesting is there are many others that got scores that are pretty similar, and they're all around leadership and people management, which are fundamental skills that everyone thinks are going to be needed now, in the immediate future, and far out into the future, too.
Okay, let's talk about the top 3 contributors here before we let you go.
We have a new key contributor this time around, and that's Megan Campbell-Smith. She's new to the board, and she's already made it to the top of the contribution list. And Bart and Paolo are often the top experts on our themes. They're both very knowledgeable about people issues and very passionate about the future.
Really compelling information here. Thanks a lot for sharing this, Ellen.
Thanks so much.
It's Ellen Rame. She's an HR executive, an attorney, and has master's degrees in organizational design and behavioral science. She's also a principal consultant where she uses behavioral science to inform and improve human capital. And we will talk to her again. Thank you, Ellen.
Bye-bye.